Out here on the Shakopee Creek for our pesticide sampling for the Minnesota Department of Agriculture. So we're just going to walk you guys through the process that we go through when we come out here to sample. So we're going to turn over to Dalton, and he's going to lead us through the first step for our sampling.
So first of all, we're just here out for safety, and this is gonna, instead of just tossing a bucket over, we straddle the bridge. I don't know, what do you want to call this?
Barricade.
Barricade. And then we're just gonna dump this 5 gallon, or 5 gallon. Edit.
2.5 gallon bucket into the water, and we're going to fill that up. This is just a little easier method than trying to go down the side of the bank and scooping it up that way. So the tube that Dalton has there is called a transparency tube. So we're going to fill that up. The more you splash on your shoes and jeans, the better. So we fill it up, and then he's going to stand in the shade, and he's going to take off his sunglasses. So the polarized sunglasses, it messes with the reading on it. So there's a little string attached. And by pulling that up, that pulls up a little disc down here. That's called a Secchi disc. And it's a little white and black colored disc on there. So all he's doing is looking down that disc, or looking down the tube through the water. And he's pulling that up until he can see that black and white disc in there. And as you can tell, sometimes you have to get really close to the top before you can see that disc. And that puts us at
about 6.
About a 6 on the line there.
Yeah.
So what this is essentially doing is it's measuring the transparency of the water to see how much suspended sediments and other solids are, you know, suspended in the creek.
I don't know if we can get a top shot.
Yeah, we'll see if we can look down. So yeah, there you can kind of see, if you're in the shade, you can see the black and white disc, and if we lower it and raise that, you can kind of see how it changes. So there, it's out of vision, and as Dalton pulls that string back up, there you can start to see the black and white again. So that's just one of the measurements we take each time we come out here, and then we'll just set that
we gotta get a picture
off to the side, and then we always grab a photo of that as part of our sample. Alright, so what we do when we're out here sampling is we have a tablet or a phone, and there's an app that we use for recording just some base characteristics, grab some weather information, the cloudiness, the temperature, and we note any rainfall intensities in the past. So our sampling protocol, we sample from the 1st of May through the end of August, and it's twice per month. So each sampling period runs, you know, from the 1st of the month through the 15th, and the 16th through the last day of the month. So you're supposed to grab a base sample for that, and then if there is a storm event where you have a significant amount of rainfall, you're supposed to grab one a short time after that rainfall event, and then within, I believe it's 96 hours after the rainfall event. So this is our first collection after the storm. We had some rains. As you guys can see, the ground is here, you know, pretty wet, obviously. So this was the first collection for storm flow. So we just note that in our application as we go through it on the tablet. And then the next thing we're going to work on is our tape down method, and Dalton's going to walk us through that real quick.
So we got a weighted tape measure, and we're just going to drop that down until this chrome piece touches that surface of the water, and then we're just going to read that once at the very top of this bridge barrier at the top, once it gets to that level. So right about
Just touching there.
there. And then reading this, we're about at 15 and 15.1.
And we always try taking that reading at the same point on this barricade, so we had just this notch right here, and we'd always just go about 8 or 10 inches to the left of that notch. So we grab that reading, and then we'll mark that down on our tablet and move on. Alright, so we're going to start our next phase for our sampling. So that's going to involve taking a few water samples here. So the samples we're collecting are for DOP, which is dissolved organic phosphorus, GC, and then NO2, NO3, and TP is your nitrate, and total phosphorus, and then CL is our chloride. GC is just your general contaminant, so this is what we sample for, primarily for the pesticides, is what they are sampling for out of that amber colored bottle. The NO2, NO3, and TP, it has to be stabilized with some sulfuric acid, so that's that small vial there. We add that in after putting the water sample in there. So what Dalton's going to do now is he put on some gloves, just so we don't contaminate, have anything on our hands that's going to contaminate the samples. So he's going to open the bottles up, and then we have our leftover water here that he dipped out of the creek, and we're just going to do a bottle wash. So he'll just do that real quick, and the purpose of doing that is just, again, if there's any contaminants that are inside the bottle themselves, that's going to come out, just so we don't have that gets contaminated within the water sample we actually take. We don't take the water sample out of the bucket, we'll use a different process for that. This is just what we do to, again, make sure there's nothing on the inside of the bottles starting out. Well, he's finishing that up. One time a year we have to do a field blank. So essentially all that is transferring existing DI, which is dissolved or deionized water essentially, and transferring that to our other sample bottles just to make sure that all the equipment's calibrated correctly, and again there aren't any contaminants in those existing bottles. So we won't record that process since that's pretty boring. Just letting you guys know that that's our once a year kind of check to make sure that we're still doing everything correctly right here. And then next up we'll be using this Van Dorn sampler momentarily. Alright, so here we are with the next step. This is called the Van Dorn sampler, and Dalton's going to kind of talk us through what that is and how it functions.
So Van Dorn's got 2 wires on it that are kind of connected right now to keep these ends pieces open. And then in my hand on the rope, I have a brass weight. So once I drop that down, give it a good couple of rinses, clear those contaminants out. Then I drop that weight, closes, spring up here undoes these little latches, sides fold down, and then you bring your sample up. So we're gonna have to bring it back up just because we leave the hose where we fill. We leave that open so we can rinse that out too. So I'm gonna drop it down right now, and then we'll pull it back up after we get done with our rinsing process. Submerge it a couple of times, do your good old triple rinse. And then we'll bring it back up and then close that hose. Give that a good snap. So I'm gonna kind of give you a good process. So anyways, it's closed right now. All you gotta do is kind of spring loaded inside with a surgical tie. And then that just goes on those little latches just like so.
And you want to take your sample from essentially the middle of the creek, not the edges where things can kind of eddy and turn back around. So that's why we're kind of situated here, pretty much smack dab in the middle.
You want good flow.
Yep, you want to make sure you have good flow, and you guys can kind of see that water moving through here.
So you kind of wait until that thing is submerged where you can barely see it, and then you drop down that weight. So just like that. Because you don't really want surface water. You kind of want below the surface for your sample.
And just put on a fresh pair of rubber gloves, again, just to make sure we're not cross-contaminating. We already did our field blank. Those are sitting in the shade in the truck already, and we'll get those packaged up here pretty soon. You don't want to have your water samples sitting outside of refrigeration for very long. Nothing here has to be turned around in 24 hours. There are some sampling, some water samples, depending on what you're sampling for, that has to be analyzed within 24 hours of being taken from the water source. But the parameters that we're sampling for on this site, I believe we can have them in refrigeration for upwards of 2 weeks. So we just have a breather valve on the back of the fan door right there, and then Dalton has that nozzle that he feeds into the top of the sample here, and then there's that cutoff valve. And once the bottle gets full, we fill it all the way to the brim. Basically, you don't want to have any airspace in your sample. And typically, we're able to fill each of these bottles up from just one sample collection off the Van Dorn. Just added a sulfuric acid. Again, that's a stabilizer that they need at the lab. And fill that clear to the top. All right. Alright, so the last step basically that we have to do is just document that we actually did the sampling and make sure that all the identification numbers line up with what's submitted to the laboratory for analysis. So Dalton's going to pull it up on the tablet and take a video there. I'm going to take a photo to document it. Each bottle does have its own unique identification number. The S16 on there, that's the identifier for Shakopee Creek. 22 is this the year 2022, and then the 009, this is the 9th sample we've taken in 2022 so far. Alright, so that's the last step. And thanks to Dalton for walking us through the process on that one. And we will see you guys next time for whatever video we have coming up. Thanks for watching.